When we read scholarly sources, we are interacting with the components of data, information, and knowledge. While these components relate to one another, they're not interchangeable, and the way we interact with them varies. Let's take a closer look. When we refer to data, we are talking about raw values or facts that exist without context. Data on its own doesn't hold much value. Think of a chart or table with no labels. There isn't much we can do with those values without knowing what they correspond to or represent. Data becomes information when it is analyzed and given context. When we provide context for the numbers in our chart, we can then see the story those numbers are telling. This information can now be used to enhance our understanding of a topic and help us draw our own conclusions. When we combine and synthesize multiple sources of information, we end up with knowledge. Researchers use their own knowledge to interpret the data they collect. For example, a researcher gathering data on weather over the course of multiple years may be able to use their professional knowledge to identify and explain changes in climate over time. We can build our own knowledge on a topic when we accumulate and interact with multiple sources of information. It might be tempting to think of knowledge as superior to information and data, but in fact, all of these components are important and need one another to exist. Even data, which we mentioned is not very useful on its own, is still an integral part of the development of information and knowledge. Researchers rely on data to uncover trends and relationships or to provide us with explanations to things that are difficult to understand. The type of data that they gather and use depends on the type of research they are conducting. There are two types of data collected by researchers: quantitative and qualitative. While one type is not inherently superior to the other, there are areas or topics of research that may be better suited to one or the other. Let's take a look at each type and how it's used. Quantitative data is what many people think of when they hear the word data. This type of data takes the form of measurable numerical values or statistics and is used to determine causal relationships between variables. Quantitative data may be gathered using measurements, counting, or quantification, a method of assigning numerical values to qualitative concepts, such as rating pain or happiness on a scale of 1 to 10. Quantitative data is used to answer questions about relationships between things that can be objectively measured. For example, a quantitative study may ask, what percentage of students who attend library instruction sessions use the library more than 5 times per semester? Qualitative data is text-based and is used to better understand phenomena. It is more focused on meaning than explanation. Qualitative data might be gathered using surveys, interviews, observations, or focus groups, and it can be used to answer questions that seek to understand subjective relationships between things. For example, a qualitative study may ask, what are students' perceptions of the library's role in their academic success? It's important to note that research studies do not have to collect or use one type of data exclusively. Some studies, referred to as mixed method, use both quantitative and qualitative data to reach their conclusions. Knowing which data types are used by a study is just one more element to take into account when deciding whether a source is right for you. By reading sources strategically and considering format and content for each source you interact with, you'll become increasingly skilled at choosing the right sources for your information needs. Now let's take a look at everything we've learned. We've discussed primary, secondary, and tertiary sources, learned about the peer review process, explored how to engage with and select sources, discovered tips for reading scholarly sources, and got to know the different types of data and how it relates to information and knowledge. Remember, if you need help at any step in the research process, librarians are here to help. Schedule a research appointment today.